An only debate between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris is on tomorrow, and let's take a quick look at the ABC moderators. David Muir and Linsey Davis are hardly impartial. Here is just a little taste of their anti-Trump bias. These are comments from less than a month ago from Davis linking Trump to a white supremacist cause.
Former President Donald Trump is expected to go campaign in Howell, Michigan tomorrow. Many people are aware that a month ago in Howell, KKK protesters marched in the streets with the white robes on and suggested that they support Donald Trump. I'm curious if you make anything about that connection and him going in particular to Howell tomorrow.
Joining me now is Newsweek senior editor-at-large and Article 3
And the person that she was speaking to was the governor of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer, right? Which I'm not a fan of Gretchen Whitmer, but that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about the presidential election and the debate that recently happened. And so as you've seen, Linsey Davis, who works for ABC and was one of the moderators last night, was absolutely biased when it came to how it was that she was dealing with Trump. Ironically enough, what I was looking at and what you guys were sending me, and this is an article that you guys literally emailed me, was that she's also an AKA. Correlation? Kamala Harris is also an AKA. And Kamala Harris also leveraged her sorority in order to, they planted a stroll to the poll, right? Which they're not objectively looking at her as a candidate. They're leveraging the fact that she is a part of the Divine Nine in order to try to push her into the White House and basically give her to us, similarly to how she became a presidential candidate in the first place, because she was hand-selected for her. She didn't have to win anything in order to get there. It goes on in this article to basically say that the presidential debate was moderated by David Muir and Linsey Davis, well-regarded journalists, which I don't really know her work like that, so I can't speak to that in particular. I'm only speaking to her ties to Kamala Harris. Davis anchors a Sunday edition of World News Tonight, and hosts the weekday primetime streaming program ABC News Live Prime with Linsey Davis. She also serves as a substitute anchor for Good Morning America and other editions of World News Tonight. Davis is a graduate of the University of Virginia, blah, 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 blah. She was also initiated into the AKA sorority and holds a bachelor's degree. She later earned her master's degree in communication at New York University. So we know what her background is. We know that she's automatically biased. We wouldn't have even paid any attention to it if she would have just asked the questions and let the people do whatever it is that they do. Aside from the fact that ABC was 100% trash, and one of the reasons that they were trash is because they didn't moderate it in the same way that CNN had. The same rules, same people, just one person that's different, Kamala Harris, and you've seen the biases, you've seen the difference, you've seen the engagement be completely different, 100% from her. She pressed Trump. She continued to try to correct him. Sometimes she was absolutely wrong. But then at the same time, Kamala Harris started off the entire debate not even answering a question, and they just went right over. And so what you seen last night was a 3v1, and that Trump had to battle 3 different people in order to try to get himself on solid footing or even footing to have a conversation. And so that's generally what it was. It was so many lies from Kamala Harris yesterday that went unchecked. And it's largely, I believe personally, based off of the fact that Linsey Davis is also a sorority member of Kamala Harris. And then there's more to it also. Let's see a little bit more of this.
Project Senior Counsel Josh Hammer. Josh, that was a bizarre question from an ABC anchor. Will tomorrow's debate be a level playing field?
Probably not, if I had to guess. I mean, ABC
now you got to remember, this is prior to the debate.
Of course, would be the same American media outlet that hires George Stephanopoulos to anchor its Sunday news show. The people will probably recall that George Stephanopoulos was one of the preeminent Clinton campaign staffers, along with Jimmy Carville, back in 1992. I mean, he is about as partisan a Democrat as it gets in all of the mainstream corporate media. This is not an objective outlet at all. Actually, Rita, if I think back, It was on the precipice of the 2020 presidential election. Wisconsin has become one of America's foremost swing states. It was an ABC News poll just a handful of days prior to the 2020 election that showed back then that Joe Biden was allegedly up by 17 points on Donald Trump in Wisconsin. The final margin of victory ended up being less than 1 point. So, I mean, there's definitely something in the water at ABC News. Fortunately for Donald Trump, if he plays his cards right, it doesn't really matter, I think, how the moderators approach this. So,
and we all know that was false because it absolutely mattered. It 100% mattered. What you found yesterday, regardless of whether or not you're rooting for Trump or you're rooting for Kamala Harris, and let's just be honest, most of us are not objective enough to say, well, this is what really happened. This was the advantages, this was the disadvantages, and we could make the assessment and say this is how he should have overcame it, this is how he should have approached it. I thought that he did a fine job in separating himself and showing the clear differences between him and Kamala Harris. He's the party, or he's of the party that want to close off our borders and then vet the people that come in to get the best and the brightest and not have people that empty out their prisons coming over into this country. She completely dodged immigration. He's the one that we can look back and say this is what his economy looked like in 2016 through 2020 versus what we've had over the last 3.5 years. We've seen all of the word salad that was happening yesterday, and he's just direct and he's clear. And he said, listen, we need to end this war. We don't want to have no more wars on American soil. Whereas he clearly painted the picture that right after she met with Linsey, Russia invaded Ukraine. We don't want to be in any proxy wars. We want to get the American economy back, and we don't want people coming over here unvetted. And we certainly don't want undocumented migrants to be able to get 20% on a property or $150,000 down payment and then them becoming a part of the Democratic Party because they feel like they tied themselves to it. So all of the bias absolutely mattered. It played itself out yesterday 100%. I think that Trump was in a bad situation, but he made the most of it. I'm proud of it. I gave him a B- in his debate. But also on top of that, he already had expressed it openly and said, listen, man, ABC is a biased organization. I don't know why we always got to keep pulling up to the ops. Him and J.D. Vance pull up to the ops all day long. CNN, ABC, NBC, whatever the C's and the N's that you want to talk about, they pop up, they show up, they take questions. National Association of Black Journalists, they deal with this stuff on a regular basis, and they don't put any kind of lack of requirements for you to be able to grill them and ask them whatever it is that you want. Now, you may not necessarily care for their answer, but they 100% are open to it. So I think that it was absolutely enemy territory. He was behind enemy lines, but I like this performance. And generally, I think there's some things that he could have improved on, but I generally like this performance because, again, I had to take into consideration that he was battling a 3 versus 1, and everybody was against him. And more importantly, now she had her sorority sister up there, and she was feeling real comfortable after she realized, oh, man, that's my sorority sister. At least that was my view of it while I was watching it live on the After Hours show. Make sure y'all tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description. Also, T. Shanley, 40% off your first order plus 20% off for life. Do you think, this is my question to y'all in the chat. All right, listen to me clearly. Listen to me carefully. Do you think that Linsey Davis, being a AKA and a woman, a black woman at that, absolutely influenced her questioning, her bias, and her ability to be able to remain neutral? Or do you think that it was just a coincidence that she just so happened to give preferential treatment to Kamala Harris? Let me know inside of the comments. I love you. I appreciate y'all. Again, make sure you tap into the Patreon. Now, let me help y'all to understand something. The bag chasers, it's only for people that's looking to go in that direction, forward and up. It has nothing to do with people that are trying to be dusty, just trying to figure out what's going on and just want to be able to suck information off without actually doing the work. You got to grind, you got to hustle, you got to do the work, you got to get to it, all right? I love you. I appreciate you. Let me know in the comments.